Hey everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel. God will do it for you. Hope everybody's doing all right. I normally post on Fridays, but the Holy Spirit put it in my mind yesterday when I was thinking, just after reflecting on the day, and I was like, all the knowledge and wisdom that I have, what are you wanting me to learn? And God was saying, your experiences are what I've wanted you to learn. That's your knowledge and experience that you're praying about. That's what I've already given to you. And I had to think about it. And when I really look back on my past, I have experienced a whole lot, ups, downs, you name it. And so what I'm going to do actually in this video is go over that. That way we can start to really build a relationship together on this channel, because as God is walking me through this path towards whatever he has for me in the future, we will literally be able to relate. It's not always about posting the good things. Sometimes it's having an understanding of the person that you're taking the time out to listen to and really trust what they're advising you. And you're going to do that by realizing that, hey, we have a similar path and we're all on that path towards hoping for better days and having faith that God is going to come through, having faith that the word in the Bible is true, and seeing what's on the other side of all the things that we have been through. So I'm going to really go in this video as far as just saying, I know how it feels. And so I'm going to start with that. And like I said, normally I go through scripture and things like that, but God didn't really put that in my heart to do that today. And he just said that if you guys want to know more about the value of knowledge and wisdom, go to Proverbs. It talks about it really great in there and has several chapters about it, and just understanding why it's important, and if you don't have it, why and how that will actually affect you. So definitely check out Proverbs for knowledge and wisdom. That's definitely a good book for that. But like I said, we're going to definitely begin, and a lot of people may be able to relate. I don't know who's going to watch this video, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to relate. But I know how it feels to be married and divorced. It hurts. It really does. It tears you apart, really, because it's a failed relationship. I know how it feels to start life and have to go live back with your parents. It tears you inside. I know how it feels to have to be away from my son, not actually living with me every day. I had to deal with that for 3 years after the divorce. Thankfully, I was able to see him every day. I still had the right to see him every day, but he didn't live with me. Now he does. So that's a blessing. I know how it feels to fall in love again and it not work out. And, you really have your hopes up on, like, okay, this is a really good one, and it doesn't work out. It didn't work out, or whatever the case may be. And God has said a few things about that, but we'll see what happens with that. But, I know how that feels. I know how it feels to hope for better days and hope that God comes through and nothing happens. It confuses you a little bit, actually, because you're like, man, I'm hoping, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm in the word, I'm doing the best to give you all the honor, praise, and glory, God, but nothing's happening. So it leaves you to make a decision. You either stop hoping and stop expecting God to come through, or you keep going. And I choose to keep going. I know how it feels to have a son or someone under you looking up to you to take care of them. I know how it feels to be a single parent, because that's what I am. And all we have is God to help us out. That's really all we got. I know how it feels to not have certainty on how you're going to take care of finances in the week ahead. You're like, the math, I have more months than money, and I don't know how I'm going to make it. But then somehow you make it. Somehow you maneuver things so that way things can get taken care of. It's just discipline and learning to be really a good steward of your money, because you have to make decisions at that point. All right, am I going to go out and buy fast food, or am I going to cook? can I push this bill back to the point where it won't mess up my credit? Or even if it does, you're like, I don't care. As long as it gets paid and nothing gets cut off, then fine. Then fine. So I know how that feels as well. I know how it feels to have a job use you in a really malicious way. I worked for an insurance company, and once they saw how many sales I was able to make them, I was 6-7 sales a day, in insurance, especially health insurance. That's a lot of money for an insurance company, especially in Medicare. They're earning around $1,800 or more per contract, and if you get 7 of those a day, they're earning close to 10 grand off of you in one day. So what they purposely did was slow down the full-time contract, which made it where they didn't have to pay me commission for those contracts that I earned. So I know how that feels to be used by a job. I know how it feels to work hard at a job and nothing happens. It just, you're like, hard work. These bozos next to me ain't doing nothing, and they're getting the same fairness. If not, they're getting boosted up a little more. It just confuses you a little bit, really. But I've always had the mindset to say, do the best you can in anything, so that way when opportunity comes for you to have to do it, or if you're in charge of something, you will know how to do it. You won't have to adjust because it's already something that you do. I know how it feels to be really thankful that you have a car. It's easy to be like, hey, I want a new car. But if you didn't have one, you'll be like, man, I wish I just had something that drives. I really wish I just had something that is able to go from point A to point B. You don't care how it looks. I know how it feels to have several failed attempts at trying things in life. It really does kind of beat at your confidence a little bit, because when you're like, man, I have more failed experiences than positive, it really starts to get to you a little bit. But you have to have that mindset to be like, hey, are you going to quit? Or are you going to give up? Or are you going to keep going and trying to make the best of what you can? I know how it feels to have people turn their back on you and backstab you. I've had people that said they were going to do certain things and then they just disappear. I've had websites that said that, hey, yep, we're going to work together on this, and then they disappear. I've had someone in a relationship where I thought they were the one and said that, hey, I'll never leave you, and disappeared. It really does. All the experiences really start to get to you, but at the same time, you have to, again, make a conscious decision in your mind, like, hey, am I going to allow this to jack me up, or am I going to keep going forward and see what's on the other side of this? I know how it feels to pray every day and nothing happens. You're praying and you're praying and you're praying, and it's almost you're wondering, like, hey, is anything ever going to happen? It does. And we're going to experience it together, because as God changes things on this end, and also in your life, you'll also be able to relate and express it, because you go on YouTube and you go on other platforms, and people always talk about the breakthroughs coming, this and that, this and that, and this and that, and this is where the knowledge and the wisdom comes in, because I observe those pages, and a lot of people are really just, a lot of YouTubers are just profiting off of giving people hope, false hope. They're like, hey, God told me that this and that's going to happen to you. God, and then you see all these people building up hope, like, oh, yes, this and that. God said you're going to get married soon. God said this. God said, they're profiting off of giving people false hope. And I was like, that's crazy. People are really doing that, and they're calling themselves a prophet. They're calling themselves, the prophetic word, this and that. And I'm like, they're literally profiting off of giving people false hope. Just to give you a quick idea of some math, 20-something thousand views gets you around $400 or $500 before taxes. So, they post that real quick, take them 10-15 minutes to give you that. And I'm not saying all people are doing that, but a lot are, because I'm like, how many, I put a few comments on some of the pages, like, how many of you are actually experiencing some of these things? And they're like, well, it just hasn't happened yet. And I'm like, yeah, but this person posted that 6 months ago as well. So I'm just like, yeah, that's why I always say be careful about where you're sourcing your encouragement from. And that's why I'm not selling that as God said this to you. God said that. My job is to give you real life knowledge and experience. This is a really grounded page. This is reality. God is the only thing that could do something supernatural. You know, we as humans, we don't have the ability to speak something on somebody's life. And if God has given someone the ability to do that, it will be done specifically for that person. So you have to be careful about where you source that information from. So I know how it feels to be given false hope. I really do. I know how it feels to have to live tight. You're like, man, like, when is the more coming? And it's not that you're not grateful for what you have, because we're grateful. Heck, we could be homeless. It could be that way. Trust and believe it. We could be homeless and live life like that. But at the same time, I'm like, God, I know what the Bible says. Especially about how he blesses us for our obedience. And there's nothing wrong with having an expectation in God for what the Bible says, as long as you're sourcing what you are feeling from the Bible, not based off of what you just believe should be because of what you're doing. Like I said, always go to the Bible. Make sure that your wants, needs, and desires are being, stated in the Bible, so that way you're not, just acting on your flesh and just being prideful and just being selfish. Really, because God, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. I know how it feels, just to be alone. Because, again, he's had me alone, and you're like, man, this is not fun. It's not fun. And you're like, even though God, he's got me to the point where now I'm like, man, I do so much just for me and my son that, if I get somebody else, I need to see how they're really going to add on to my life. I don't need anybody to make my life complete. And that's what he really wants you to realize, because he's like, people can walk out on you whenever they feel like it. And then what? Now you're going to be broken and shattered in the inside and unable to function properly if you get used to the idea that, hey, as long as I have you, God, I know that you won't leave me, you won't forsake me, then we will be just fine. We will be just fine. That's the one thing that God has definitely shown me, especially being in a city alone with no resources, and I'm not experiencing a significant financial breakthrough yet. So I know I'm not like, hey, yeah, everything's fine, this and that, yada, yada, yada. Because if I want to be honest, I did a full scope of my life, and I'm like, you know what? If the two things that I really desire, if God gives them to me, in my opinion, my life would be really, 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 awesome. And so I'm like, all right, well, if it's just those two things, which God could do whenever he feels like it, then life is all right. Life is all right. Yes, I would love to be able to do certain things that I just can't do right now because of obligations and priorities. But just like my son told me, he said, not yet, Daddy. And I was like, yes, not yet. Not yet. That's why I keep my vision board on the back, on my wallpaper on my phone. That way I can just always give myself the picture like it's going to get better. I know how it feels not to have anybody to talk to, or someone that, people just don't understand what you're going through because they're going through different paths in life. And they may not be just as close to God as you are trying to be, or as you are. Because if you're in your testing season and you're going through things and this and that, you have to be careful with who you're talking to about what you're going through, because they're not going to understand. If they have a partner or a spouse that's not with God and they're with them and things like that, or if they're doing things that that you're like, you have to be careful with who you talk to about what you're going through, especially once you reach the walk in life, especially once you're starting to experience spiritual warfare and things like that. I didn't even know what that was until God gifted me with the Holy Spirit. So I can only imagine you talking to somebody about spiritual warfare that is really not that close with God. They're gonna look at you like, spiritual warfare, man, whatever. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. So that's why I know how that feels to feel not understood. You feel like you have no one to talk to. You're like, dang, if I could just vent to somebody that gets it, and the only person that you can do that to is God. The only person that you can do that to is God. I know how it feels to feel like you're close to something different. Like I've been telling my son, I'm like, buddy, I don't know when, I don't know how. I just don't know, but I know that things aren't going to be like this forever, because at first I was coming up with a plan B. I was like, man, I don't know, man, maybe God's not going to answer this prayer. He's made promises to me, I don't know. And I'm like, being in life like this, because I can relate to you all, it's like, and I could be transparent, it's like having to cut back on things the way I've had to. I'm like, I appreciate God for taking care of me and my son and keeping us here like this. But at the same time, I'm like, this is not life. This is not life, living like this. I'm like, living to the point where you're just getting by. Even in the Bible, it says that we're not supposed to be living a life of just getting by. He wants us to live a life of abundance. So I'm talking to God like, hey, I'm strong, but by a certain time period, I can live with myself if it just certain things aren't just what it is. So my strength and my hope is really in this Bible and in God pulling through for me and my son, because I'm like, we're doing what we're supposed to do. We're not perfect. We're not Job. We're not Jesus. We're not God. And Jesus wasn't even, so it's like, we're not perfect, but we are literally doing the best we can. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So I know how it feels to be like, what am I doing? Like, what is there something I'm doing wrong? And you're not doing anything wrong. It's just God building you up for whatever he's got coming for you. Especially if you're a generational curse breaker. I know I am with my biological father. We're totally different. So it's like, I know that's what I'm doing, is I'm breaking that, and I'm making it where my son will not have to go through the same things that I'm going through currently. Because by the time everything's all said and done, the platform will be laid out. All he has to do is go through his walk of life, but in my opinion, it should be better. When God pulls through, it should be better. It should be better. So I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be reading this Bible. You're encouraged one minute, and then reality sinks in, and you're like, yeah, I know, man. And just staying hopeful every day, waking up, expecting, and nothing's happening, expecting nothing's happening. I know how it feels. But what we all have to do is stay strong in this. We all have to source from the right people, because there are people that you clearly see that are blessed, and on whatever platform that you're looking at, that they also shared their stories of success and how they've had to suffer to get it. Those are the people that in my opinion, you would want to pay attention to, because you see the story. You see everything. You see everything. Everything's kind of laid out there. They're telling you, they're like, hey, it's going to be hard. You're going to suffer. So don't, especially if you're chosen, you're going to suffer. There's no way around it. You're going to suffer. But if you stick with it, and then you look at how they're living, you look at how they are, they're talking, they're like, hey, I got a wife, I got kids. They're like, money ain't a problem. I hear some YouTubers be like, well, I only had $15,000 in my account. And I'm just thinking like, you're talking to a lot of people that don't have that in their account. So I'm like, that's a blessing to think, like, where they said they were one moment, and then now they're like talking in that type of vocabulary. That is a blessing, to the point where God has blessed them so much that they can fathom the words out of their mouth that, hey, I only had like 15,000 in my account. That just shows that God can do it for you. And that's why, again, I always like to reiterate, that's why this page is that name, is because when you look at other people and you're like, I wish I had that, you don't have to wish. God will do it for you. You just have to ask yourself, what are you willing to do to experience that. What are you willing to sacrifice? How much are you willing to suffer to experience the glory of God? That one touch of favor that will change your whole life forever. And it's to the point with me where I can't even turn back. In order for me to piggyback and get back, as they say, to Egypt, you know, it it would literally, I'd have to give up on this, I'd have to give up on that, and my life would just be backpedaling years. I would really be behind. So I'm at the point where like, this gotta work. And like I prayed to God, I was like, God, we're literally at the point where life cannot progress unless you open a door for us. And that's what he wants. He wants it because he's going to get all the glory. And like I've told him, I don't care about that. I really don't. You can have it. I've never been the type of person that desires a whole lot of attention, vanity, things like that. I've just never been that person. I've always just wanted to just live a decent life and do what I love to do. And so that's the only thing that I can really say is the really good positive about this, is that this next phase of my life is actually going to be that, is because that's what I'm working towards now. See, before I was working towards a job and working towards certifications and things like that for the world. But now I'm doing God's will. Okay, and now I'm like, if he blesses what I'm currently doing, it's going to lead to me doing what I love to do every day. Me living the life that people say that it's a dream. They're like, that's the dream job, or that's, people wish they could do that. People wish they can just be financially independent, things like that. That's what we're working towards, because I've dealt with the world and how it works and how these jobs do it. They'll never pay you what you're worth. They'll never pay you what you're worth. They'll pay you what they're going to give you. And if you accept the offer, then that's what you're going to get. They can fire you whenever they want. They can cut hours whenever they want. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's like, when I'm not the type of person that accepts that type of control. If your gift and your talent is with whatever industry, job, whatever, then that's fine, because God's going to make sure you get exactly what you need and deserve. He'll bless you in so many different ways that you don't have to worry about sourcing income from the job. That they would just be the source, but God is the source. And that's the same way I feel. I'm like, once God decides whoever, whatever is going to be the source of our blessing, trust and believe, I'm going to accept it with open arms. Not going to really complain, but that's going to be really it. I just want to let you all know that God has given me a lot of wisdom and knowledge based off of my past experiences. I've been through a lot, and there's even more that I've been through. This video ended up being really long, and I could just talk all day. Like, I've been through a lot. Like my mom has told me, you lived an adult life at a very young age. I was going through adult things at the age of 23 and having to navigate that, especially when I was in the Air Force, and have to handle it, and not realizing those things were going to give me a big advantage in knowledge and wisdom as I got older, because now my grasp on life and how certain things operate, how to be responsible financially, understanding APRs, percentages, knowing how to really utilize things and make it work for you instead of you work for it. That has given me a tremendous advantage, and that is the only reason that me and my son are able to survive the way we really do, because God will provide for you. He will provide provision, but you have to make sure you're doing your part as well, and you have to make sure you piggyback on the things that you've been through in life and really make smart decisions these days, because one bad decision can really jack you up now. That's just the way today's world is. One wrong purchase can really jack up your finances, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck. One bad turn can total your car and it be your fault. And let's say you only had liability, now you have no vehicle. So decisions are very crucial now. You have to be smart about what you do. You have to be clear-minded. Make sure that you are truly evolved to the best of your ability, because God is not done with us yet. The best is yet to come. I truly believe in my heart that I'm going to be able to share something with you guys that is really just going to boost you up in the right way. And that way you can see that, no, there's someone else young just like me that is going through it. They're hoping, they're praying, they're doing what they're supposed to do to the best of their ability, and God really pulled through. Because you can type all you want on YouTube, people's breakthrough came through, you don't see it, and that's because a lot of people give up. That's why they say many are called but few are chosen, because many get called to do it, so they go through their wilderness season and they give up. That's why you don't see the end result of, oh, my breakthrough came through. You don't really see, you can't search it. There's really no search. People give up. They give up. It's hard. It's not meant to be easy. But the people that get through it, I hear those YouTubers and some of the people on other platforms, they talk about how their income went from $30,000 to, they're like, hey, in 3 years I've made $1 million. So you do the math. They went from 30,000 to 300 something thousand a year. I've seen one YouTuber go from 10,000 subscribers to 700 something thousand subscribers in 9 months. Their whole life changed. So, and by staying with it, I've seen some people go from just starting doing something, but they've already been doing work in the background. And then now they started talking about it, and then God is just exposing them. Boom, 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 boom. So there are very few people that are actually experiencing these things. They're experiencing the glory of God, at a really accelerated rate. And that's why I'm going to be that person that sticks with it, because I'm in too deep. And it's to the point where I'm like, if I give up, life is gonna really suck. And so I got no choice but to stick with it. And plus, I do want to do the best I can for God and for His kingdom. I want to be able to show people that God will pull through for you. I'm suffering for everybody, because everybody's suffering in their own way. I'm definitely suffering in my own way as well. And I'm suffering for everybody. I'm suffering for those that are inspired to be something and experience something out of the norm, to get out of Egypt. I'm suffering for everybody that has hope and something that they truly desire. I'm suffering for those that gave up on their dreams, just to show them that it is still possible to do what you dream to do, even though I have my son full time, because it's already hard with that, because time is very limited. I'm suffering for those that didn't want to give up, but they had to. I'm suffering for those that got to the wilderness season and they were close to their breakthrough and they gave up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be successful with it. And I'm going to make sure that I bring up anybody that I can with encouraging words. If God gives me in this page the ability to bless those and put them on the platform, I don't care. We're all trying to rise up together. It doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter the race. It does not matter. We are all trying to rise. God is trying to make strong soldiers, and He's going to put you through some stuff to make sure that you are really ready to handle this world and all of Satan's enemies, because the enemy runs this world. And so he has to make sure that you are ready, so that way you cannot be swayed when the world starts to offer you things, when they start to see you getting exposed, because new levels, new devils. New levels, new devils. Everybody's been through it. Look at all, there's a lot of people that have been through it, but God always pulls through. And so He's going to make sure that you're ready. I know it's hard. I know how it feels. And that's why I made this video, because we're going to get through this. These times are tough, but we are tougher because we have the Most High walking through us on the raging waters. Until next time, y'all.